If you struggle with an addiction, or you try to add a new hobby that is painful, or you just go through hard times, watch this video. It might give you some hope and some practical steps in order for you to overcome that struggle, and it is based on a certain fact about human nature, and that fact is the fact that you cannot suffer long term, okay? Suffering is a short term signal to make you act urgently, to make you try and solve the problem right now. But the thing is, your brain is not fucking stupid. Your entire organism, the human organism that has evolved over millions of years, realizes that if you keep suffering, if you are in an environment where something is very painful, it realizes that that thing is something permanent in your environment, which then it has to adapt. Because think about this, suffering as a feeling is not really adaptive, okay? If you just keep suffering, if you keep being in agony, in the end all you're going to do is just lie down, and with human consciousness you also might even fucking kill yourself. So it's really not adaptive to just make you suffer forever. So what your brain does, it makes you suffer way less, or make the suffering way more tolerable, so you can actually cope and actually survive in your current environment. And as an example, in the book Man's Search for Meaning that Viktor Frankl wrote, he was a Holocaust survivor that observed people, also a psychiatrist that observed people in the Holocaust, and he said that after a certain period of time where they kept suffering in this concentration camp, in the end they achieve a certain state of apathy, of emotional numbness, where they basically don't feel as much pleasure, they basically almost don't feel pleasure, but also they don't feel any, like not any pain, but they feel way less pain, and basically they adapt to this torturous environment. And it's not only concentration camp or this extreme suffering, it also things like addiction. You see, if you just abstain from a certain drug, abstain from a certain things that you crave, your dopamine levels will balance out, they will keep homeostasis, and in the end it will come back to baseline, and you won't have this deficit which makes you feel the craving. And of course, it's not like the battle just stops and you won't have any craving after that, or that you won't experience any pain. No, but it is to acknowledge the fact that you won't suffer as much, and it will be much more tolerable, and you can actually fight with it compared to how it felt at first. Now, acknowledging the fact that suffering isn't forever can give you motivation to go through that suffering that you experience at first. But still, we can acknowledge the fact that we aren't rational creatures. Even if we know it will be over, we still might succumb to our cravings and our basically these weaknesses. So you might still fail even if you know it won't be there forever. So here are 3 tips that can help you actually go through that early phase of suffering, so you can actually reap the fruits of long-term satisfaction or happiness. The first one is never ever overwhelm yourself. You see, your brain operates basically always question itself, like how worth is actually investing energy into a certain activity. And if something is super hard, your brain already question it heavily, is it something actually worth doing, even if the reward is huge. If it doesn't feel the reward, if viscerally you don't have this really felt feeling that you are about to get the reward, your brain might demotivate you to not keep pushing and actually go back to whatever environment you were in. As an example, to go back to your addiction. But if you're actually going to minimize the steps that you need to take, only focus on today, only focus on small things, on the next step that you have to do, then your brain actually motivates you way more because the effort is much lower. And another thing with overwhelming yourself, if for example you fight a heavy addiction, okay, don't set these super ambitious goals of do this, and basically have all of these things to fix your life. No, it is too much pain, too much suffering that your brain simply cannot handle. So what will be a better strategy is to start with something that is difficult enough but still manageable, because if it won't be, you will simply give up. Now, the second tip is find meaning in the suffering. This is also something that Viktor Frankl talked about in the book of Man's Search for Meaning, and that is you are more likely to keep pushing if you have meaning to your suffering. And the reason for why is that the case is because our beloved dopamine. You see, dopamine in general sense is the molecule of motivation, the neurotransmitter of motivation, and one way it is responsible for your motivation is by attaching meaning, by attaching importance to specific tasks and activities. So if something has importance, guess what your brain wants to do? It wants to reward that activities, because if it's important for you, it will be great that you are going to do it. So your brain rewards, it makes you feel better and makes you wanna keep fucking pushing. So if you actually will find some meaning in the suffering, it will be oddly even rewarding, because your brain wants to keep pushing if that suffering actually has value. And the opposite hand, where you won't have meaning to the suffering, it will be so much worse. This is the worst feeling a human can have. It is pointless suffering. Now, the third tip is to burn the boats. This is one of the most talked about productivity hacks there is. You see, it's very hard to suffer if you actually have an option to not suffer. As an example, let's say you start a new habit that is painful, or a new journey in your business. It's very hard to keep on pushing if you have this mentally option to just do something else, or basically you believe there is an option that is easier. It's very hard with this conscious, but if you mentally will be absolutely convinced that this is the only option, this is the best option, or basically that this is what you do and you have a certain commitment behind it, it's way easier to stick to it, because you don't have this escape room. You're basically forced to keep on pushing.